Rob here. We're going to be doing some debunking on the most recent CityCast episode with Mayor Johnston.
Alameda?
Okay, Alameda.
Should we go to Alameda?
Yeah, Alameda, another hot topic.
Yes.
Yeah.
So our understanding is that DOTI's current plan is to do a limited
Wait
temporary...
a second. It looked like you were having a feeling just at the word
Did you have a feeling
Alameda.
about Alameda?
Do you have a
No,
Did you
feeling?
have anything you wanted to say about Alameda before I asked you a long, detailed question
No, you
about
can ask
this
a long,
crazy
detailed question,
process?
and I'll jump in because I do have thoughts about Alameda, and I've watched all. I watch all the stuff that you do, so you can't talk about me behind my back because I know all the things that you say.
Okay.
And I both have umbrage with the way you've talked about Alameda and the way the public has, and so I'm excited to talk about it.
Well, then why don't you
Go
lead?
for
Go
it.
for it. Yeah.
What are you
here's
thinking?
my theory. So here's how I feel about Alameda, which is I think the way that the opponents of the current plan have engaged in this topic.
We're talking the Jill Anschutz crowd?
No, I'm talking the other side. And I think actually even that frame for me is part of it, which is like, I think what we're talking about is, like, could you tell me the difference between plan A and plan B? How many bump outs, how many signals, how many turn lanes, how many bike lanes?
I can tell you the big things.
Yeah.
What are the big things?
The big thing is 4 lanes or 3.
It's actually 3 or 2.
Okay.
Yeah. But people think there's bike lanes or no bike lanes. There's no change in bike lanes.
It's actually 4 to 3 like it's always been.
But the point being, this is a traffic engineering question about whether you do 3 lanes or 2 lanes. And
With a turning lane.
And what the relative impact on the neighborhood is in that trade-off. I'll give you an example. Take Colfax, when we were at 4 lanes on Colfax and we went to construction for BRT. Rough numbers are somewhere around 20 to 30,000 cars a day were on Colfax before we put it under construction from 4 lanes to 2 lanes. Our current data now is it's about half that that's traveling on Colfax now. So that's 10 or 15,000 vehicles that are not on Colfax anymore a day, rough numbers. Where do we think those 10 or 15,000 went?
As the data has shown in the past, we see that some people choose just not to travel, or they change how they travel, or they change time of day when they travel. There's lots of reasons.
15,000 went. Do we think those are all folks that decided to then put their 2 kids and their drywall business on a bike and ride to and from work?
No one's ever thought that.
No.
I think a lot of them are driving the wrong way on 14th and 13th.
Those
right
are
now.
cars that are going on other streets to get to the same path, right? And so it is not a complicated deduction to say, if you change a street from 4 lanes to 2 lanes, where will that traffic go?
We need the data to make this assumption, and we may have it, but the mayor's not using it here, and this is a bit disingenuous.
And that's a trade-off. We know that going from 4 lanes to 2 lanes does make a street slower, which is great for some things. If you also asked the learned lemur or anyone else on Colfax or on Alameda, would you rather as a business have 25,000 people coming by your door a day or 10,000 coming by a day?
Those people are driving by. They're not stopping. That's something the mayor and most politicians seem to ignore. Allowing more traffic throughput might sound good, but it doesn't equate to foot traffic and business.
They will say that's also a difference in terms of impact. And so there is a real trade-off here. And I think the concern I have is I think a certain side of this debate has been Trumpian in this
That's quite the word to use.
conversation, which is to take what is a traffic engineering question and turn it into a conspiracy story about personal attacks. Like even the notion of calling one of the plans the Anschutz plan is itself a conspiratorial argument, right?
It's not conspiratorial. Act for Alameda was a coalition that was started by Jill Anschutz. This is easy stuff.
Like anyone can Cora me. They've Cora me already. I've never spoken to the Anschutzes about this. No one's ever called me, emailed me. I didn't make the decision about it. But the belief is if you just say that enough times over and over, that lie becomes true. It doesn't. And then you have things like people targeting city employees to make them lose their engineering license as retribution for disagreement.
Crazy. That's crazy.
That is not the way you have civil discourse.
This was the first time I heard about that, but someone later replied on a Reddit thread and mentioned that they were the one who submitted the complaint, and it was a fellow engineer. If that's true, there's a mechanism for people to submit complaints to the state board, and it sounds like they did.
So on the question of should we go from 4 lanes to 3 lanes or 4 lanes to 2 lanes, how much displacement will there be and what's the outcome? That is a fair question, which is why I agreed the right answer was let's pilot this and see what we find out. So we're going to pilot the version that is 2 lanes, and we'll see how much impact it has on the neighborhood, how much impact it has on through traffic, and if that works.
It's good that they reversed course, but all they had to do was finished with the finalized plan that they had last summer. It was finalized and it was ready to go, and they did this U-turn, and then they had to be made look like the clowns that they are in order to get them to come back to this pilot idea that they have. We don't need to be here at all.
The
If it
original.
works, we should do it.
You're
which-
piloting
we're
temporarily
piloting
in a limited basis the
the
original,
original plan. And so rather than projecting what the impact on neighborhood might be, let's test it. And
Okay.
let's see. And if it works great and the neighborhood says no negative impact, then we should keep it. If it turns out the impact is much higher than we thought and the throughput is much lower than we thought, we should relook at it. But for me, that's a reasonable conversation adults can have without throwing conspiracies or false narratives about corruption in city government to solve what is a traffic engineering question.
Undermining the public input process in order to assuage the fears of a private party at the very end of the project is not how government is supposed to work.
That aside, I think the thing that I've gleaned from this conversation is that there was active participatory engagement, civic engagement with the community for 5 years.
Yes.
And then it seemed, at least the way that I've understood it, is it was ready to go, but then someone stepped in from the neighborhood. Jill Anschutz happens to be who it was, and said, hey, wait a minute, wait, stop. And I think that's where the frustration comes from is this truly a civic process if it can change after folks in the neighborhood have been working on it for 5 years with the city?
Yeah, I think the misperception is that because people were working on it for a long time, there was consensus agreement on the.
There is never consensus agreement on projects ever, especially when it involves a street. There was a majority agreement, which they went back against.
Plan. In the same way that people were working on Colfax BRT for 20 years as an idea. There are folks that 3 months after it opened, business owners there who would say, this is a terrible idea. Why did we do this?
Yeah.
And how can we stop it? And why did no one ever ask me?
That's called moving the goalposts. And if we did it every time there was a project in the city, we would have absolutely nothing done. It is the weakest of spine politicians who bring this up every time. Once you hit the final section of the plan, you follow through with it, and then you can come back and make changes.
I was not a part of that process, so I don't know. But whenever you get closer to an actual decision to say, guess what, your business will now be shut from 4 lanes of traffic to 2 lanes, or guess what, your neighborhood will now have rerouted traffic come through it, people suddenly engage in a different way. So I was not a part of that decision. I was not in any of those public meetings, and so I can't tell you. I can just tell you that what I know is there were strong feelings on both sides, but I think those can be substantive conversations about what are we willing to trade off in terms of diversion of traffic for slowing of traffic. And I would just remind us to our other, because I saw your top 5 list of things I should be worried about list I want to talk about too. On the trade-off of, we have to also remember, as I also was on Colfax this morning and then diverted off of Colfax because it's down to 1 lane to 13th and 14th to come down, which is also now 1 lane, right? What was a 10 to 12 minute commute for me to downtown is now a 30-minute commute to downtown.
The Colfax BRT project isn't finished yet. We don't know what the results of the journey times will be. He's actually comparing his journey time through a construction area, which is nuts. That's apples and oranges bullshit right there.
Downtown. If you can move Colfax from 4 lanes to 2 lanes, but if you move Alameda from 4 to 2 and 6th from 4 to 2 and 13th from 4 to 2 and 14th from 4 to 2 and Colfax from 4 to 2 and 17th and 18th from 4 to 2, you would make every one of those individual streets easier to travel, but you would make people getting to work to and from different parts of the city much more difficult.
I really think this should be the highlight of this clip. He said we would make those areas safer. However, we might make someone's commute a little less convenient. And it's kind of bonkers to say we're going to put people who live in and around this area through the meat grinder just so that someone outside of it can zip through quicker.
And so I think that is a balance, which is, I don't know how often you've stood at the corner of Colfax in Colorado. I have a lot. And when you watch, the folks driving there, they are, teachers going to their school. They are parents dropping kids off at East High School. They are city inspectors that have to go to multiple locations. They are people with drywall businesses. Those are folks that need their.
This fictional drywall business comes up here again, and no one's ever said that we should make it difficult to do business in the city and county of Denver, or that getting your kids to school should be made impossible. weirdly, the mayor keeps insinuating that that's the end goal here. I don't understand it, and it shows a complete lack of understanding on his part.
Street safety activists and neighbors have corred these emails, and it's not about the time. It's about this phrasing. I think that it really dates back to this one email from August 14th, which was sent from a DOTI engineer 2 days after meetings with Jason Gallardo, lobbyist hired by Jill Anschutz and Jill Anschutz herself at Blackbird Public House last August. So 2 days after this meeting that she got, because Gallardo used to work at DOTI, this DOTI engineer wrote, "We have been working with leadership to triage some, quote, high-level community and leadership concerns with constructing the project and recently received clear direction on a path forward." So I think what people are upset about is why Jill Anschutz, it gets to be treated as a high-level community concern when people in the neighborhood aren't high-level. And I wonder how you feel about that.
Yeah, I don't agree with that assessment. As someone that makes decisions for the city all the time, we have a lot of people who raise their voices a lot, who we listen to, and we try to balance that feedback. I mean, you mentioned as one of the things to flag is the bike lobby and how their feelings are represented. We spend a lot of time talking to, thinking about, working on partnerships with the bike lobby. 2% of the residents of Denver commute to and from work on a bike. 2%, right? 24% of Denverites voted for Trump, I think, somewhere in that margin.
Again, there's the Trump comparison, which I truly don't understand why he's pulling that out of his pocket. It's pretty insulting to everybody who's been involved in this process.
If we were making
I had that
policy,
memorized.
if we were making policy for that 24% of the city, you would be astonished.
In March of 2024, the executive director of DOTI signed a policy called Mode Shift, and it did just that. It addressed the minority of people in Denver who are not driving, and the city's new policy to increase the number of trips done outside of a private vehicle. So yes, you're actually doing policy that is targeted for a minority of the people.
But that 2% is a very vocal minority. They're thoughtful, good people. We spend a lot of time with them, not because they're powerful or have money, but because they advocate a lot on issues that they care about. So people advocate on issues for all reasons, because it's in their neighborhood, because it's their passion, because it's their calling, and we try to balance those. But you have to make sure that all those voices are heard and they're balanced. I do not know any decision in the city that I've been a part of or that I reviewed that has been made because one person asked us to do it. That's not the way we make decisions, and it would be particularly silly to allege that we would make that by a family member of the largest Republican donor in the state. Is that who that is? I mean, I think what would be the possible reason?
Phil Anschutz?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know how people think about this.
Right,
like maybe she's going to donate to a future campaign if she gets the way she wants, and you're thinking about the money. You're thinking about
right.
What
but
people think.
that conspiracy would require that happened. That person told me. I went to the donor records to look how much the Anschutz have given. I don't even know this Anschutz. I don't know which. This is Jill. Is this?
The emails from Jill's group were forwarded to members of his staff and executive leadership at DOTI. Of course, he fucking knew who was asking and what. It's not a conspiracy. It's just what happened.
I don't think I've actually met her. I played hockey against her daughter when I was her sister when I was maybe 14.
Okay.
But I don't believe any Anschutz of any sort has ever given money to me. I don't know if that's true, but none that I know of. But this conspiracy would allege, what it implies is that happened. Someone called me. I said on the red phone, "Oh no, that's a major donor. We have to make sure and give them whatever they want." There's no fact base to support any one of those pieces of evidence. And
of course, we know that's not how it happened. That's not how city government works. But a very prominent person sent a letter to the mayor, and then we saw a very quick turnaround of a finalized project. This is not a conspiracy again. This is not a leap. This is just simply what happened.
What the opponents found was this as a juicy story to sell, which is it must have been the Anschutz factor that changed the decision, when in fact it could have been a no-name small business on the corridor who was suddenly very worried about their foot traffic being cut in half.
The mayor shows his lack of understanding once again here when he mentions foot traffic being cut in half. I don't understand how a road diet would cut foot traffic in half. We're talking about lowering vehicle volumes here on a corridor that is nested inside of a residential area and also is a transit corridor.
Or another resident that is in a neighborhood that does not want to have 1,000 or 500 cars diverted a day down a street where their kids walk to school that's not meant to be a major thoroughfare.
It's important to mention that the executive director lives on one of these corridors, and there is an intense conflict of interest that we have not noted, and we should.
Like there are plenty of viable reasons for this disagreement that are not conspiratorial.
Not a conspiracy when people have issued core requests, gotten the documents, and simply read out what happened. Ultimately, Denverites don't like being lied to, and that was a major problem with this project. Falsehoods came quickly and often. It was also one project in a long line of similar occurrences where the city finalized the design, presented to the public, and then did a U-turn at the very end of the project. So this was a reoccurring theme, and this was probably the worst of all of them, but the boiling point. And it needs to be corrected. And this is why it's had such long legs, not because of a conspiracy, but because of people being lied to, then finding out they were being lied to, and then gaslit into believing that they were the problem. That's not a way to lead Denver. It's not a way to finish these projects. And going forward, they need to realize that stuff like this won't go away.